Life Beyond Labels is a Quiet Loud Studios production, proudly featured on Sports E Media. Discover more at quietloudstudios.com. Background music created by Yo Crane. Hello, welcome back to the Life Beyond Labels podcast. This is season 1, episode 10, which means we are wrapping up season 1. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for listening if you've been with us this whole way. If you're new to this podcast, thank you for listening. As always, I just want to take a moment. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm glad that you've decided to try out this podcast. I hope that you leave this episode with inspiration, hope, motivation. Maybe you leave just thinking about something a little bit more, but overall, I hope that you leave the episode feeling better than when you started it. And so season 1 is ending, but this podcast is not ending. There will be a season 2, but today I want to talk about endings. And I want to talk about the fact that just because something ends differently than you expected it to, doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that it was a waste of time or that you failed it or that it failed just because it ended differently than you expected. And so I feel like sometimes we have a tendency to, at least I do, to really beat ourselves up over not finishing what we started, or I don't know, when something just doesn't finish the way that we saw it. Like we watch these movies or we read books, and all of these movies and books and whatever feed this story sometimes of a comeback or this success. And if we do all of the little things right and we just keep bouncing back and bouncing back, then it's ultimately going to work out. It's going to mean something. And sometimes that just looks differently than what we expected. And it can still mean something. It just might not be in the area or the arena that you originally pictured. And so for me, when softball ended, I just felt like I had grown up on all of these motivational books. I read every motivational book I could consume. I mean, all the talks and the speakers and videos that I could watch. I had a journal, like a vision journal, where I would just write to myself, and I would get up at the crack of dawn and go to the gym in the dead of winter. It was empty. Like I was doing all those little things that I had read and watched in movies and had seen that told me that I was going to succeed if I did these little things, if I went above and beyond, if I was striving to be that 1.6% of players that make it to Division 1 in college. Like that was just my fuel. But throughout my time as an athlete, like I had had multiple injuries and ailments. And so there was a lot of shame with the fact that there was multiple injuries and ailments throughout my career, because I felt like from the time I was 15 to the time that I ended in college, I was just bouncing back and bouncing back. And I think sometimes when life stacks things up on you one after another, I reached this point of having so many injuries, ailments that I was bouncing back from. And when I would come back from them, like you have an injury, like my very first injury, my very first concussion, I'd come back from it and you think that was my challenge. I'm finally on the other side. I'm back. You go through the physical therapy. I went through the treatment, the recovery. I played through migraines, and I came back, and I got that rush and I earned back a starting spot. I was on a nationally ranked team, travel team, and I was playing. And so I felt that fulfillment of this is going to be my trajectory upward. I made this comeback and this is going to be my launch. And then something else would happen and it would be like, all right, I've been through this before. I'm going to get through it again. And once I do, that's going to be my comeback story. And so I would get through it and I would get to the other side of it and I would be just right there finally on the edge of just enjoying playing and enjoying succeeding, and then something would happen, and then it got to the point where it was like I can't give up. Because if I give up and I allow multiple things to stack up and I decide to stop playing, then all of that was for nothing. And so having these multiple injuries and ailments throughout my career, I started to get to a point where I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. Because at what point does it become my fault that these things are stacking up? At what point does it become, are people going to think that I'm seeking out bad things? At what point are people going to think that I'm just a klutz, or I don't know, seeking attention, or that I'm weak? And so I would bounce back and I would try not to talk about it, and I would just get back on the field as fast as possible while fighting this embarrassment and this shame, because I didn't want people to see me and think, "Oh, poor Kelsey, she's had a lot of tough goes, like, poor Kelsey, she's had a couple injuries, she's had this or that." I wanted attention for being great at my sport. I wanted attention for being confident and strong and great on the field, and I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want people to feel bad for me. I didn't want to have an injury or a challenge or an ailment and have all these, stacked up challenges and be known for that. And so part of what made my last and final head injury, if you've never listened to the podcast and you don't know who I am, I had a head injury that ended my softball career in college. And when that one happened, I had been in this process of knowing that I could make a comeback and really fighting to make a comeback. And this was the one where I just felt it. Like, there was no coming back from this. I had such severe symptoms and such a drastic change in my health and my cognitive abilities and all of these very serious things that I didn't feel that spark anymore of knowing that I could come back. But up until that point, I mean, I know it sounds like it's just softball, but at that point, it almost became this addiction of like, life's not gonna knock me down. I'm gonna have these injuries, and softball was like this metaphor for my life of, I'm gonna get through these injuries and I'm gonna make it out on top. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna succeed. And I would work and work and work to bounce back. And so I had this injury, and then my career was now defined by this hardship and these things that I had racked up. And then I got to the end and felt like I completely failed. I failed. I'm a burden. I got to the end and thought, at this point, I know this is not true, but at this point, when it had all ended, I felt like all I've done for 10 years or however many years is rack up medical bills, stress for my family, and scars. And I came out with nothing. And all of that bouncing back, I had believed to my core that it was all gonna mean something right around the corner. And and every time that moment, that success, that trajectory upwards, that comeback story was just out of reach. And so I felt so ashamed, like I had failed. I felt embarrassed. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want people to feel bad for me. And life has a tendency to do that. I was just talking with somebody that I met randomly in a parking lot a few days ago. Not in a weird way, just, sparking up conversation with a stranger. And when I talk to people and they share their stories with me, sometimes like life has a tendency to just rack up back to back to back challenges. And I don't know why that is, but it can be difficult because you think just around the corner it's going to get better. I remember my brother once said to me, he was like, "It's only up from here." And I feel like you absolutely jinx it as soon as you say that, because then something else would happen and something else would happen. And so the point is, I felt like I had failed. My culmination of my time in softball, minimal as it sounds, to me, it was so important because I had bounced back from challenges, and it really was this life thing for me. I was on a nationally ranked team. I was at a Division 1 Power 5 school. Like, I just was engrossed in it, and I failed. And but I didn't fail. And for you, it could be, maybe it's your job and the door shut on that particular career, and an injury or an illness caused that career to be over for you and you can't go back. Maybe it's an injury that caused you to stop playing a sport and the door has shut on that sport and your ability to play that sport. Maybe it's you wanting to go back and you feel like if you could just reverse time, You could raise your kids a little bit differently, but they've passed that window of age of being young. Maybe it's a relationship that's ended and you feel like, was it a waste of time? Did I do everything I could? Did I do the best I could? And it's hard to talk about that period when a door shuts. You could fall down 7 times, stand up 8, and then all of a sudden, that window of opportunity, that door of whatever goal or thing that you were in, arena that you were in, the door shuts on it, and it is no longer possible for you to achieve that thing or reverse time and make it better in that area. Because for me, it's not possible for the rest of my life to go back and play college softball. It's not possible. It's also not possible for me to go play competitive softball at any point in my life going forward. And so how do we get through that feeling when we can't go back, when the door is completely shut on that arena? And I think it's radical acceptance that it might hurt a little bit forever. You might have a little bit of a scar. And just because you have a scar doesn't mean that you can't extract something from that challenge and find meaning in it. Like really just believing that there's meaning and you're going to have to pivot in a new direction and you're going to have to knock on new doors cuz the old one's shut and it's not opening back up, but just to keep pushing and until you find something else, even when you don't see a new finish line or you have to create a new one. Because I felt like this was all over and I had failed. And then I had applied to do sports psychology at the University of Boston. And I was like, I'm going to redirect this energy into being a sports psychologist and helping other athletes. And then I got rejected from Boston. And I was so disappointed because I felt like, what is this going to mean? Like, this has to mean something. It just, it can't be any other way. And for me, it was also faith. There's some things you can only discipline yourself through so much. And so there's that discipline to just keep going and monotonously get through whatever challenge you're facing, but also having that faith that it's going to amount to something. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I believe I'm on a path. And I thought the path was going to look way different, but I'm going to trust that it's going to mean something. And I'm going to do everything within my control to make that happen and make that possible. And so I just had this faith throughout the entirety of my career that it was all going to mean something. And it wasn't a comeback story on the field. It wasn't a comeback story in softball. But then I had this opportunity to give a speech at my graduation. And all of a sudden, within a 3-minute, 5-minute speech, it did all mean something. In this ability that I was blessed with to give this speech, post it online, and then reach somehow millions of people. And and that amounted to something and it meant something and it looked completely different from what I thought it would. But at the same time, I had achieved this new goal. I mean, I guess it wasn't even a goal. It happened so unexpectedly. But I was now in this new arena, but I still felt like a fraud in the athletic world. Like, I still felt like I don't deserve to talk about being a student athlete. I failed at it. I'm embarrassed about it. I feel like my injuries are embarrassing. How could I have had so many? At what point is it my fault? At what point do people think that I'm the problem? At what point do people just think it's me and I'm attracting bad things and I deserved it and I was seeking it, and I just went down this crazy spiral of feeling like I was at fault. Everything that had happened was my fault. And I felt like a fraud in athletics. And so my full circle moment actually was not it was the speech, but there was another full circle moment that I want to tell you about because I want you to know that your full circle moment is coming. I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't know what it's going to look like. But I was even just talking to one of my friends. She has a chronic back injury and she was asking, what do you do when the monotonous routine of recovering from chronic pain and an injury is taking over your life? because she was struggling. And I had a lot of answers for this, but the one that really stuck was just telling her, you're not going to see the meaning in it when you go to physical therapy on a Thursday. You do not see the light at the end of the tunnel right now, and that's okay. But you have no idea of the moment that's coming when you talk to someone and you tell them about your injury and they needed to hear your exact story on the exact day that they met you. Or you're never going to know that you had to have this experience with uh, a clinician and be able to decide on the right care. And maybe you had a bad encounter with a doctor, or a bad encounter with whoever. And now going forward, you know how to make a good decision, and you're saving yourself from making the wrong decision down the road because you have this knowledge, having gone through this hardship. You're saving yourself from something down the road. You have no idea the people you're going to touch, the people you're going to reach, the opportunities it's going to open up to lead you exactly where you're meant to go. You're not going to see it. And it might be in 1 year, it might be in 2, it might be in 10. You might have some tough stuff coming again around the corner, but you just have to believe and have faith. And something for me, it's God. And for you, just believe that it's going to mean something. Like, believe that there's a plan for you, believe that something is going to come from this if you choose to see it that way and you choose to extract growth and lessons and meaning from this experience, as tedious as it seems and as isolating as it is for you right now. And so I'll tell you, my full circle moment was last year. It was about a year ago today. I was invited to speak at the University of Oklahoma. And if you know anything about University of Oklahoma and their softball team, they have won the last 4 national championships in a row. They've won 8 national championships in the last few years, and they are just phenomenal as a program. I mean, phenomenal. Like growing up, they were on a winning streak of national championships, and everyone I knew around me wanted to play at Oklahoma. I did not get recruited to play at Oklahoma, but everyone wanted to go. I mean, Coach Patty Gasso was one of the first, I think she was the first softball coach. Yeah, excuse me. I know this. I'm getting flustered telling you. She's the first women's softball coach to sign $1 million deal. I mean, just game changers for the sport. Game changers for the sport. And so they're a tight-knit group on campus. And I get there, and the woman who invited me to speak at Oklahoma, her name is Sunny. She's probably listening. Hi, Sunny. I'm going to tell you all about my time at Oklahoma at some point. But she invites me to speak, and she gets me in to speak with Oklahoma softball. And she tells me that this is happening a few hours before I'm supposed to meet with the team. And so all of these emotions and feelings rise to the surface that I have to just get through. And I can't be worried about feeling like a fraud in the athletic space. Like, these girls that are about to sit in front of me have won 3 national championships in a row, or they've been very successful at wherever they've been if they've transferred or come in. Like, they're at the top of our sport. I played the sport that we both play, and I'm gonna have to go in there. And what is my importance? What am I there for? And really convince myself and be confident in the fact that the whole point is that we've got different labels. They are national champions. They are top of our sport. I'm different. I'm a graduate. I'm whatever else, but we're connected. We have similar feelings. It's our character, and really believing in the message that I was telling them. So, anyways, I get invited to go speak to the softball team. I get there. Coach Patty Gasso greets me at the door. I'm trying to be professional because she is just an icon in the softball world. We have this great conversation. And then I talk to the team for about 20, 30 minutes, and it goes really well. And the players are fantastic. They're asking me questions. We're talking. I mean, it just goes really well. And I'm in their, not necessarily locker room, it's like a meeting room. And all around me are their posters and trophies and stuff. And I'm going to kind of make my exit. I'm starting to, finish out conversations with people. And then Coach Patty Gasso is like, hey, everyone, real quick. I just wanna say a few words." And she goes, "Kelsey, thank you so much for coming today. We know you're a Wolfpack girl, but today you're an honorary Sooner." And she throws me a t-shirt and the whole team's starting to cheer. And for a minute, I feel like I'm part of the team, and I feel like I'm being celebrated. I feel like I'm kinda with them, and it's a really cool feeling having not had that necessarily towards the end of my career at NC State. And then a few minutes go by, I'm having more conversations, and she says, "Hold on, Kelsey, I really want you to stay. Can you stay for a few minutes?" And I say, "Yes, of course, I will stay as long as you'll have me." And she puts this box on the table, and she goes, "I know it's not all about performance, but sometimes it is. And I want to give you guys your 2023 national championship rings." And she unboxes their national championship rings, and they all go crazy. And I'm trying to like maintain this level of professionalism, but it's lost. I'm so excited with them. I mean, you have to get excited. It's a room full of excited a team that literally is unboxing their championship rings. And I'm part of this moment, and they unbox the rings. They like pass out all the boxes and they do this countdown, and they all open it at once, and it's like 3, 2, 1, and they unbox them, and I'm keeping my place to the side while also being excited for them, and they're just including me. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you have to try it on," and, like, "Get in here, girl," like, and taking pictures, and I'm part of this moment of them celebrating their national championship rings, and I think what felt full circle about that is here I was feeling like I had completely failed in the sport that we all played, softball. And I was a fraud and I didn't deserve to be there and I was never going to unbox the national championship ring. That dream that I had as a kid was out the window, door shut. And here I was in 2024, 3 years later, however many years later, putting on a national championship ring for softball. And we had wildly different stories. These girls that were in that room with me, they were successful at their sport. They had a different platform, got a different plan for them. They were gonna reach people that I couldn't, and I had a different story, and I was meant to reach other people. I was meant to have a different platform, a different arena, a different story to tell, and both of those stories are necessary, are important, are gonna hopefully help people in the parts of the world that we get to impact. And so it wasn't a failure, it was just different. It was just different than I expected, and I didn't it wasn't traditionally like, I didn't win a national championship with my team, but here I was in this moment with one of the greatest programs in our sport being invited to celebrate this championship with them, and realizing that I didn't have to be the best softball player of all time. That wasn't even what I was speaking about. I was speaking about character and about attitude and about treating other people well. And that's something I knew how to do well. And that's something that I've worked towards. And that's something that I could truly speak on with confidence. And so my point is that if you were to ask my rock bottom 2021 self, or you were to tell her that in 3 years she really was going to meet one of the greatest coaches in our sport, be part of this team for a day that's nationally recognized, and be part of celebrating with them, I would have told you that's insane. And all of this full circle impact that I've been able to make on talking about things that I truly care about and I truly believe with, I would have told you that's crazy. And so you might be in the depths of feeling like a door has completely shut on you, and your goal or whatever it is that you want to fix is outside the realm of your possibility, and you don't know what to do with that feeling. The door is shut. There is no more pushing to be done towards your goal in that area. There is no more effort that can be extended that would make it possible. But your full circle moment is coming. It's coming. It's going to mean something. And I don't know when, but you have to believe that it's going to mean something a month, a year, 2, 5, 10 years from now. Because what would really make it a failure is not pulling any sort of growth from it, or any sort of lesson, or anything of substance that's going to make you a better person and continue to grow you as a human being. And I'm sorry to grab my paper because there was something else I really, really wanted to say. And sometimes I don't always stay on track, and my brain was a little foggy this morning. And so I'm going to be real with you all that I have a piece of paper. Oh, I just flashed it in the camera. I have a piece of paper just in case I lost track today. Oh, yes. I just wanted to say that it's if you can find something of meaning from whatever it is that you're going through, that challenge, and I'm sorry that the door is shut on you. It's tough, it hurts, and I go back to whatever that is for you. Maybe, your job is done in whatever field you were in, and that was just so important to you, or that sport was so important to you and it ended with an injury or ended on a down. It didn't end with that successful comeback story, but finding your smile and finding your good attitude on the other side of a difficult time and continuing to move in any direction, knowing that it might lead you to a new door and a new arena, and you're going to choose to make something meaningful out of whatever it is that you had to go through or whatever it is that you wish you could take back, pulling a lesson from it, pulling some meaning from it, believing that there's a purpose for it, and you're going to make sure that you reach it by choosing to challenge yourself and keep going even when it's hard. That's your comeback. Your full circle moment is coming. And I I just believe that for you. So, just because something ended differently than you expected doesn't mean that you failed. Doesn't mean that you didn't work hard enough for it. It doesn't mean that it was all a waste of time. It was not a waste of time. It taught you something. It's leading you in a new direction. You just have to pivot and find some meaning and turn it into something beautiful. So, with that, our season 1 is ended, and I am so grateful that you've chosen to listen to this episode. I hope you will join us for season 2. I'm excited for a lot of more new things, topics, episodes to come. If there's anything you want to hear in the next season, please let us know on our social media. But with that, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope that you experience your full circle moment in due time. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.